What up? What's going on? Selection Sunday is tomorrow. I'm gonna give you my selections for Selection Sunday. I don't. I'm not. I know my numbers are not gonna be like exactly as theirs, um, because whenever they make the brackets, sometimes it's more beneficial for teams to play closer to home than it is for them to get the highest seed available. So, like tomorrow, like instead of maybe, you know, Arizona and Oregon getting a lower two seed, they'll probably get the top two seed or whatever seed is the West seed because it's more beneficial for them to play in the West. More fans will be able to travel. It'll be closer to home. It'll be easier for them to travel since it'll be closer to home for them too. Not as much mileage on the team. Um, and obviously ticket sales, more fans that are, closer to where the game is at, they can go to the game. So, but my 68 teams that I have are going to be just the teams in my order of, looking at resumes, how they've played this year, how I feel about them, where I think they're at. I will be right on some of these teams. I will be very close on most of these teams. Like most of these teams are going to be pretty spot on. I feel like, but at the same time, this is mine. This is exactly how I feel about it. I've made 2 videos before this. I've been doing this for most of the year, but this is how I feel about it. So my number one seed of all, I know championship week is not that big of a deal. It's not something that you should put a lot of emphasis on, and it can get teams into a tournament. You can get valuable wins to build, from maybe a 7 seed to a 5 seed, depending on how you do it. We're talking about teams like Iowa State. We're talking about teams like Wisconsin, but but like Villanova is my number. The reason that I said that the championship week is just because that's the reason that I gave Villanova my 1-1 seed over Kansas. I think Kansas was probably more dominant on the year. And, throughout the year, it looked like Kansas, kind of had that little slight edge over Villanova for the 1-1 seed. But I had to give it to Villanova. They won their regular season. They won their Big East championship. The Big East championship was not an easy championship. It was one of the better tournaments that I watched over the weekend. Some of the tournaments aren't over yet. Do take that into consideration. But Villanova, to me, winning their regular season and then winning their conference tournament afterwards, to me, I think they're the 1-1. Being reigning national champs, they're going to be my 1-1 seed. Kansas is definitely second. And when you look at it, you say, Villanova had the RPI 1, Kansas has RPI 2. So Kansas is my next seed. Kansas has a very good resume, 11 top 50 RPI wins. Or I think that's right. They have 8. Villanova is the one that has 11 RPI wins. They have good non-conference schedules. Something that I want to talk about now, ESPN, you must understand whatever network you're watching, they're going to be more biased to their conference. And the ESPN, that's their ACC. Their primetime games are ACC. They have a lot of ACC. Now they're fair to every team. Joe Lunardi looks at things fairly, but they're ACC, very ACC oriented. All those guys, Jay Billis, Seth Greenberg, Jay Williams, they're all ACC dudes. When you talk about like Fox Sports, they talk about Big East. They're very Big East biased. You'll notice their Big East teams are way more in to the field than like a normal person. They're very Big East biased. If you watch the Big Ten network, Big Ten, they have always got their teams way more in than not. So you have to understand whatever you're watching is gonna be biased, or you have to make sure that whatever you're watching not to get too caught up into the biasness. Saying that Syracuse is one of the hardest ones to judge But okay, what I'm gonna say is things that you can trust. The ACC is the best conference. You've got tough games all year long. The ACC teams that do make the NCAA tournament their record will be outstanding. After the first and second weekends, there'll be a lot of ACC teams in the tournament towards the end. So I said Villanova 1, Kansas 2, North Carolina's my 3. They're gonna always have an ACC team as a 1 seed. North Carolina, wins against Louisville, wins against Duke, wins against a lot of teams throughout the year. RPI 4. They have a tougher strength of schedule than Villanova and Kansas. They're my 3rd. And then you look at Gonzaga, and I was like, Gonzaga. Could Arizona say that they're better than them? Because Arizona definitely is playing better right now than they were at the first of the year, and now they're healthy. They didn't have Alonzo Trier at the first of the year. Now they have him, and they're playing a lot better. Like if we're looking at eye test, we're saying Arizona is better than Gonzaga, but you look at the resumes, Arizona really hasn't beat anybody. When you want to say, well, Gonzaga hadn't beat anybody, well, Arizona really hadn't beat anybody. And then head-to-head, Gonzaga beat Arizona. So you have to give Gonzaga the edge. They lost one game all year, one fluke. It's a team they've lost to multiple times in the past. They won their conference tournament, beat St. Mary's 3 times this year. I think they're the 1. They're the 4th one. So then we go to 2s. Now, like I said, I'm pretty sure Arizona or Oregon, whoever wins that game tonight, I'm going to go out on the limb and I'm going to say Arizona's going to win the night. I think the way Lauri Markkanen played last night, I think it's going to continue tonight. He showed. He's a mismatch. He's an issue. Oregon's been good. Oregon hadn't really played that great though this tournament. And Arizona really has. Arizona really looks like they want to win. Sean Miller really has those guys going. It's going to be a good game. Don't get me wrong. I think Arizona will win it. They're probably going to give Arizona the number 1 2 seed. And I think that's just because of the West. But for me, my 2 seeds, I've got Louisville as my 1 2 seed. I've got Duke as my second 2 seed. Duke has played outstanding towards the end of this year. Jason Tatum has came on. Harry Giles is playing good of late. Luke Kennard, second half machine. He continues to make me look good with his runners in the lane. I talked about that in some of my other videos. And Grayson Allen, somebody I don't really like. He's been actually playing very well. I don't know the outcome of the Duke Notre Dame game yet. I'm going to watch that one later. But regardless, those teams are in. They're good. But I've got Duke as a 2, regardless. And then my other 2 is going to be Kentucky. Kentucky has the 15th strength of schedule, 5th RPI. They're a team that I didn't really realize they had such a good resume, playing in the SEC and stuff. But going 16-2 in the conference, they're in the championship game. They'll probably win tomorrow against Arkansas. I've got them on my 2 line. I think they're the 2, and then my 4th 2 is Arizona. But if Oregon was to win tonight, then Oregon would be my 2. So then you go to 3s. Then there's Oregon as my number 1 3, and then the thing is the Pac-12. I know Oregon, I know Arizona, I know UCLA is good, but you got to understand those 3 teams have not beat anybody other than themselves and Southern Cal. They have not beat anybody other than those teams. Those are the only teams that they beat all year. So it's not like, Oregon can come out and be like, well, we beat, Duke or we beat Louisville or, Oregon, Arizona, and UCLA have not beat anybody except themselves. Okay, so my next 3 is going to be Baylor. Baylor actually has a really good resume, tough strength of schedule, good RPI. They haven't played as good towards the end of the year, but their non-conference schedule is going to get them a good seed. I've got them as a 3. Florida State is the team. that they've got an outstanding resume. They played a really tough schedule at the first of the year, and at the first of the ACC year. They're going to get a really good seed. I think they're going to get a 3. Florida, I think, gets a 3. They've got a really good RPI, really good strength of schedule. They've got a 3. My number 1 4 is going to be Butler. Butler is a team that they're going to get a really good seed because of their resume. They're going to they're 2 wins against Villanova. They've got a lot of other good wins. My next 4 is going to be UCLA. UCLA, they just don't really have that tough of a schedule. They're very good. They're one of my favorite teams. I'm ready to see what Lonzo Ball does in the NCAA tournament. But they just don't have that tough of a resume, so they're kind of tough. They're kind of tough to put up higher. And I know they're not going to get that high of a seed tomorrow. And I know people are going to be upset, but they're a 4 to me. Notre Dame I have as a 4. I don't know the outcome of the ACC championship game. Virginia has the 3rd strength of schedule, 18 RPI. They struggled down the stretch this year, but I think their resume will get them a good seed, so I think they're good at 4. Iowa State won the Big 12 championship earlier. I got them as a 5. I've got them kind of moved up. I had them more of like a 7 or a 6 probably earlier in the week, and they're probably a 5 now. Or they're a 5 now. West Virginia's a 5. West Virginia's played good this year. They've got a pretty good resume. Purdue's that's crazy to think that the first Big Ten team is Purdue. At 5, but I've got Purdue at 5. Their resume isn't that doesn't like bat. Like, I mean, it's not as good as someone like Butler's, so they're a 5 to me. And then I've got Minnesota as my next 5. I really like how they finished down the stretch this year. I really like how Richard Pitino's got them playing. They got seven guys. I mean, we'll see what happens with Akeem Springs. But they got 6-7 guys that can really play. Minnesota might be a 6. They might give the SMU Cincinnati winner tomorrow a 5. But then my 6s are Cincinnati, Maryland. Cincinnati's a team that is very good. They just got a real good team all around. They're gonna be good. Maryland's a team that they surprised a lot of people. They're 3 freshmen. They haven't got a lot of credit. If you look at the All-American teams and stuff like that, none of them were really on any teams. But they did a lot. They helped Melo Trimble a lot this year. But you'll only hear about Melo Trimble. SMU, they're very good too. I think a lot of the time for these teams to have really good records, though, it's just going to be matchups. Who they get matched up against. So that's why I'm not really talking about teams too much. I'm going to make another video where we'll see who gets matched up against who, and then we'll talk about stuff like that more. But I'm just talking about more like who's getting in. So then St. Mary's is my next 6 that's getting in. So we've talked about 24 teams so far. Those are 1 through 6. My 1s through 6. So then 7s is going to be Wisconsin. Wisconsin is in the Big Ten championship, and if they win the Big Ten championship, that's cool and all. But if you really think about who they've beaten Michigan, who if they win tomorrow, which would be the 8th seed. They beat Northwestern, who was the 6th seed, and they beat Indiana, which was the 10 seed. So they really didn't beat any of those really good teams that they could build off, like a Purdue or a Maryland or a Minnesota, to really get a good win or kind of jump one of those teams. And their strength of schedule isn't that great. So I have them as a 7. Creighton I have as a 7. They've struggled since they've lost Watson, but they've actually played better than Xavier. and I have them as a 7. Oklahoma State I have as a 7. Maybe a little high. Maybe they'll get a lower seed than that, but I like them. I've talked about them before, and then they also have like the 14th toughest schedule in RPI 41. Um, Dayton, they lost in the 18 quarterfinals, and that wasn't a good loss for them. But I don't think it's going to affect too much. They play a good non-conference, and they're a known team. They're like a Wichita State. They're a known smaller school. I've got them as a 7, but don't be surprised if they're a little bit lower than that. South Carolina I've got as an 8. Michigan's a team that you're going to really have to watch out for. If Michigan could get a 7 seed, if they could win the tournament tomorrow and get a 7 seed, maybe jump Wisconsin. They could potentially be scary. They play a lot. They're a team that I wasn't even really I barely really talked about in my first video. I had them kind of barely on the bubble, and they're a team that's really jumped through the roof and played really good through the end of the year. And they're in the championship game tomorrow. They've actually beat some good teams. They beat Minnesota. They beat Purdue, Illinois. 3 teams that were talked about. Illinois was talked about getting to the tournament if they could have beat them, and they got smashed by Michigan. Michigan played a lot better than Purdue and beat them, and then they handled Minnesota today. So 4 games in 4 days is tough, but if they can get a higher seed than 8, because the thing about getting an 8 seed, then you got to play a 1 in that next round. But they're kind of like Oklahoma State. They're better than they're going to be seeded. And then the thing is, I got a lot of love for the A10 conference too. So my next team is VCU as the 8. These teams might be a little bit lower, but they have they have a tough strength of schedule, tough RPI, good win. So the thing is, it's justified. And then Miami is my last 8. I do like the ACC. I have a lot of love for the ACC too. I do see how the ACC is a good conference, or is the best conference. When you talk about someone like the Big East and how many teams the Big East gets, when a lot of these teams were in a lot of the smaller conferences before, because the Big East, it's like the new Big East, and it's not the same. But not to say those teams aren't good, but then my nines starts off with Virginia Tech. I like Virginia Tech. Seth Allen, 6th man of the year in the ACC. He's one of my favorite players. I'm sure I've said that before. And Northwestern is a 9. Northwestern's a team, you start to look at the resume and you start to think, man, these other Big Ten teams are starting to pass them up. How low will they go? And then Michigan State is another 9. Seton Hall is my other 9. Seton, I don't know. I don't have a lot of love for the big. I mean, I have love for the Big East. Obviously, I gave Villanova that 1, but the Big East to me is not that strong this year. Like they're gonna get like the 7 teams in, but I'm not showing a lot of love seed wise to the Big East. Seton Hall's my last 9. So 10s, Arkansas is a 10. Arkansas will win tomorrow against Kentucky. Kentucky can get them a little bit higher. Providence is my next 10. Marquette is the 10 after that, and Xavier is my next 10 after that. It's crazy to kind of have 3 Big East teams as 10s. It probably won't fall that way tomorrow. But to me, Providence has to be above Marquette, but they're very close together. And then Xavier has a way better RPI and a way better strength of schedule than both those teams. But the thing is they don't have Edmund Sumter anymore, and their record has really fallen since they lost him. So it's just like they're really not the team that they were. Like, honestly, I wish Xavier would have lost the first game against DePaul so we could have just, kind of took them out of the tournament, because I don't really think they're going to do much in the tournament. They're a team that's like, Creighton has at least – responded to adversity. To me, that they have just kind of laid down. They did play pretty good in the Big East tournament, I will say that. But I mean, there's only so much JP Mercure and Trayvon Blewett can do. And then, so my 11, so most controversial probably team to talk about is Syracuse. You know, they have a lot of bad losses. Their non-conference schedules was terrible, 8-5. Their RPI and their strength of schedule doesn't really even help them out. But they played in the ACC, and everybody talks about how tough the ACC is. And you know, we talk about, oh, man, if these teams could just have positive records in their conferences, we could get them in the tournament. And, you know, that's what Syracuse has done. They have a positive record in the best conference. And that's why I have them in. I've had them in this entire time. Sometimes I get skeptical. Sometimes I'm like, whoa, why do I have them as high as I do? But, you know, they're in. They're one of the last teams in, obviously. But Syracuse is one of the teams in, one of the last teams in. And then USC is my other one. You know, it's kind of crazy to only have about 4 teams out of the Pac-12 in here. You know, last year, 2 years ago, I remember having like 6 or 7 in there from the Pac-12. So it just feels weird to have as many as low as we have. But USC I think deserves to get in. They've only lost like 9 games this year. They just haven't really beat a lot of people. I think their best win is probably UCLA. And then Wichita State is another 11. They obviously won the Missouri Valley Conference. They're a team that is a little bit more of an unknown, just because I don't get to really watch them as much. I did get to watch when they played Illinois State, and they smashed them. And I know that they're a good team. I know they played in tournaments in the past. So we'll see who they get matched up against, and we'll see what happens there. So then, like in my, playing game, I would have Vanderbilt versus Rhode Island. Vanderbilt to me, but they play the second toughest schedule. Then they have a good RPI. They have a lot of good wins. They beat Florida 3 times, and Florida's a 3 seed. So those are some very good wins. And there's just really not a lot of other teams that are just right there that really have a case to say that they're in, and Vanderbilt can say that. Vanderbilt's a team that because there isn't any good teams this year, they can say that. And I have them matched up in the playing game against Rhode Island. Now, if Rhode Island wins the A-10 tournament tomorrow, I see Rhode Island kind of going up. So then they will probably be playing against a USC or a Syracuse. I could see Vanderbilt playing, maybe even Xavier if they don't show Xavier any love. But if Rhode Island doesn't win the A-10 tournament tomorrow, I look at them to have to play in a playing game. I don't see any way how Rhode Island could get jumped by one of these other teams that I'm going to talk about in a minute. But so then Kansas State and Wake Forest are my next 2 teams. Like Wake Forest and Kansas State. Well, I guess Rhode Island will be my last team in if they don't win the A-10 tomorrow. But Wake Forest and Kansas State are those next 2 teams. Wake Forest to me is more in than Kansas State, but Wake Forest is not as in as Vanderbilt. So like Wake Forest, they're an ACC team. They're that next ACC team that people are talking about. Like, it's crazy that they're going to get this team, but I mean they're a good team. Like, they've played good down the stretch. They've got good guards. If they get the ball to John Collins, like this is a team that can win the playing game and make some noise. Kansas State's a team that played a lot better at the first of the year than they're playing right now. I feel like they should have beat West Virginia yesterday. I will not be sad if they don't make the tournament. They haven't played good enough to get into the tournament. Honestly, the Big 12 doesn't deserve this team, but like the thing is there's just not any teams that really have a claim or can make a stake. We're talking about teams like Cal. Cal didn't beat anybody except Southern Cal all year. It's just sad. Georgia had their best win was like Vanderbilt. They played a tough schedule and stuff like that. They won like 20 games. They went like 20-13, but it's just that's not that great. TCU got a good win against Kansas, but then they kind of laid down against Iowa State. So you can't really help them out there. Illinois needed to beat Michigan. They didn't do that. And then you talk about small schools. You talk about, Akron, they fucking lost. Like, I told this in my other video, there's going to be all these fucking teams, all these small teams are going to fucking lose. Like, all these, like, and they're like, all I get, like, it's just so stupid that they have to win their conference tournament to get in. Like, they shouldn't have. I mean, the conference tournament makes them money and shit like that, and so that's why these things go on. But like, there's so many fucking good teams that aren't going to get to play in the tournament because like, you got to win your conference tournament. You know, UT Arlington lost today by like 20 points. Like, probably played the worst game of their year today, and they lost by 20 points, and they're not getting into the tournament because there's no way they have a better record or a better resume than Illinois State. And if they do, they don't have a better resume than Rhode Island, and that's with Rhode Island losing tomorrow. And so they really don't have no claim. Illinois State has no claim. And then Monmouth, you know, they had no fucking claim. You know, I said Monmouth was going to win their damn tournament, and they fucking rolled over and fucking lost. I mean, you know, Akron fucking, I was like, I was about to make this video, and I'm like, oh yeah, you know, Akron, they'll probably handle Kent State, you know, they'll probably get it done. Nope, they can't get it done. I mean, these teams, it's terrible. But you know, okay, so then, you know, let's talk about some of these. These would be our mid-major monsters now, because these are the teams that actually made the tournament. Middle Tennessee, thank you for making the tournament. UNC Wilmington, thank you for making the tournament. If the UNC Wilmington Duke game is on YouTube, please go back and please watch the UNC Wilmington Duke game from last year. They were a 14 or a 15 seed, and watch that game if you want to see how a small school can potentially beat a big school. And we're talking about, this is a team that was in the tournament last year. This is a team that saw exactly how they almost won a game with this formula, and they're gonna do the exact same thing. If they get a 12 seed, you know how the luck goes with these 12 seeds. These 12s and these 13 seeds always are upsetting the 4s and the 5s. The 12s always beat the 5s. There's always like 3 12s that win. You know, the 12s and the 13 are like very good mid-major teams. And that's why I hate it that these teams don't get in, because if more of these teams get in, there'd be more of these good-ass upsets. Because if UT Arlington was in instead of fucking Troy or Texas State tomorrow, like, this would be so much better. You know what I mean? If Monmouth was in, I mean, Iona's good. Iona has a damn good coach. But if Monmouth was in, that would be, you know, if Illinois State could get in, damn it, you know what I mean? But like, I don't even want Illinois State in over Rhode Island. I'm high on Rhode Island. I like Rhode Island. So then, okay, we talked about some more smaller schools. Nevada's Mountain West. They're not really like tiny or nothing. I don't know a lot about Nevada. I got a game recorded though. I got their championship game recorded. I'm gonna watch it and figure out, you know, see what their matchup is. That's what I'm gonna do with like a lot of these teams. Same with Middle Tennessee, because I'm not gonna waste my time watching these teams all year, and then they're gonna fucking roll over in the damn tournament. Like, you know, I bet I had some people, I was like, oh, I wonder if anybody's wondering about, you know, UT Arlington and like why I don't talk about them, and you know, oh, they're gonna think I'm gonna jump on the bandwagon when they make the tournament. Well, this is why I don't, because they don't make the fucking tournament. So then, Vermont, thank you. You're a mid-major monster throughout the year. East Tennessee State, you were a mid-monster early in the year. Bucknell, you were a mid-major monster earlier in the year for me. So those are some 13s that I have on here. And then Winthrop is my other 13 that I have on here. Winthrop was really kind of like, they got like the 2 seed or 3 seed, but they were kind of in first throughout the year. My 14s are going to be Florida Gulf Coast, Dunk City, and then Northern Kentucky. Northern Kentucky somehow won that crazy Horizon League. You know, I feel bad for Valpo that I think Peters got hurt, and Oakland, they just shit a brick. And then Iona, I got Iona as a 14. I always got that. I always have Iona as a 14. And then I got the winner of, this is a good ass game. Don't sleep. Now Cal Bakersfield might be tired because they played a 4 OT game last night. I watched that game. It was pretty shitty, honestly. It was like it was like 35-35 with like 5 minutes to go in the second half. Like these motherfuckers could not score. This is the WAC conference. They're whack as fuck. But then New Mexico State, they're actually pretty good. And I think New Mexico State will win just because they're not going to be as tired as Cal Bakersfield. But I think they can get a 14 seed. Honestly, they're a team that usually would get like a 15 seed. I think they can get a 14 seed with their record this year. 15s. At this point, I'm like, what the fuck? I don't really know. I'm just kind of like looking at RPIs, looking at strength of schedules, throwing shit down. So like at this point, it's just like whatever. Like y'all don't care, I don't fucking care. But I'm just, what I mean. These are the teams that are going to be in the tournament. Okay, so either Troy or Texas State, they play tomorrow. They're going to represent the Sun Belt. Texas Southern won the SWAC. Kent State beat Akron. They're going to represent the MAC. They're probably going to get like a 15. I would be surprised if they got a 14. I think they should get a 14. They're in the MAC conference, but they don't have a good RPI. North Dakota and Weber State were playing. I think Weber State was winning by like 12, so I'm sure Weber State got in. But those are the two teams that are there. New Orleans or Texas A&M, Corpus Christi. That's a barn burner down there in Katy. I think that's going to be for a 16 seed. UC Irvine and UC Davis. Both California universities going at it. This game's tonight. We'll see who wins. They're probably going to get a 16 or 15 seed. And then there's going to be 2 playing games as 16 seeds. I've got NC Central. Hey, they were a mid-major monster for me, but I checked their resume and stuff, and they're really not a mid-major monster, but they're in. They won their tournament, so they at least made me look a little bit good. Belmont lost the damn Ohio Valley or something conference, and Jacksonville State, a 20-14 team won. But this happens every year in that damn conference. Somebody won last year that was terrible. Austin P won it last year, but they're a 16 seed. They're going to be a 16 seed, and they're going to have to play in Mount St. Mary's. They're going to have to do a playing game. And then South Dakota State, they barely got in, But watch this guy named Mike Dom. This dude is raw. This dude scores like 30 points a game all the time. He's getting Curry like all the damn time. But that's what I got for the tournament. It should be a good tournament. I'm ready for the tournament to start. Playing games Tuesday, Wednesday. I'll probably make a video. I'll probably make a little video or something for the good playing games. Just say who I think will win. But and maybe I'll just do a lot more of the predictions then. But I mean, I'm gonna talk about the teams. But I don't want to do all that talking about them if I don't even know who they're matched up against. Like, it'll be a lot better once I see who's matched up against who, and then and I'm not gonna talk. I'll show you. I'm gonna make a bracket. I'll do like a link if you want to join my bracket. I'll probably do one on like ESPN just to see if you want to see how yours does against mine or whatever. But I mean, I'm probably gonna do. I'll show you my bracket that I make, and I'll tell you why I make the bracket that I make it. But like, you gotta understand, like, my bracket's not gonna be perfect or nothing. Like this shit. I mean, it's ridiculous. The 12s and the 13s that win, and I mean, like, teams like, it's just, you never know what's gonna happen. It's crazy. That's what's awesome about it. But at the same time, like, it makes someone like me look fucking stupid because But I'm just gonna try to give. All I can do is just give good insight, help you try to make a good pick, and tell you about kind of the things that the teams do and some of the players. I mean, the one thing that I know is if you watch my video and then you watch the game, you can be like, damn, this guy knows what he's talking about. He knows he knows what players are gonna do what. He knows these guys are gonna what guys are gonna go off and shit. I mean. It's crazy, but I'm excited for the tournament. Hope y'all are too.